Have you ever dreamed of owning your own place? Having it all? No more landlords, no more rent, no more surprise visits, no more worries about anything like that. Your own land, your own home, your own view, all yours in the great Mojave Desert. Now, who wouldn't want to live in Aqueduct City? Come on, you know you would. Aqueduct City, oh yes. Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls, Aqueduct City, with a beautiful view of the southern Sierra Nevada mountain range and wind machines and power lines. But hey, off to the east, the beautiful and vast Mojave Desert, Galileo Park, Red Mountain, Randsburg, Garlock, and Trona. Close to shopping and the Mojave International Spaceport, along with all the parked airplanes. Panoramic view of Mojave, California, close to shopping. There's a Stater Brothers there, with another beautiful view of the whittled down Soledad Mountain. You can watch them mine it down to a nub from your own front window. Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen, Aqueduct City, a pre-planned community, subdivided, inviting you to come join the hordes of insects and snakes and desert reptiles that have taken up residence here. Okay, enough of the comedy routine. This is actually a place, Aqueduct City. A lot of you that are local have probably seen this sign just north of Mojave along the old Highway 58 access between Mojave and the new connection with the new 58. But it's right alongside the road, and it is actually a subdivided place with lots for sale. I am standing at the corner of Avenue 22 and Main Street, and that is looking north up toward the mountains and out east towards California City. I don't know how big Aqueduct City was. I can see markers way out there in the desert that mark these streets. Some of them are actually cut in, some of them aren't, but they are marked. I did a little bit of research, not much, but I couldn't find a lot of stuff on it. But there are still lots for sale out here. And there were actually some pieces in there about lots that were no longer for sale. So somebody's buying this stuff. But the earliest I could find any information on this place was 1968. I don't know when it was actually bought or began development. But that was the first date that I could find that property was actually sold out here. It actually isn't. I mean, if you like the desert, which I'm not a big fan of the desert as far as I wouldn't want to live here, but if you like the desert and you would want to live here, it's actually got a pretty nice view looking out east towards the Cal City and Randsburg out there to the mountains that way, and it's not an unpleasant view. It's just the desert. And it gets, I can't believe that this sign has never blown down. I mean, it's pretty solid. It's got steel holding it together, but the wind blows out here almost constantly. It would probably end up being a miserable place to live. I don't know how hard it is to actually find more history on this. I didn't really feel like digging that deep into it. I've always thought this was interesting. It's been here ever since I can remember, this sign has. And as in the first I remember, back in the early 70s, I was junior high, I guess, we used to start coming to Mojave for different reasons, going over to Edwards to go to the commissary over there when Tim was in the Army. But from what I gathered, when this was originally developed, the people who developed it, or the person who developed it, I couldn't find if it was a company or a person, thought they were going to be able to tap water off the Los Angeles Aqueduct the way Cantil was at the time. But Cantil had an agreement with the Department of Water and Power that started in 1909 and ended in 1989, I think. And when that contract with the DWP ended in 1989, they did not renew that contract, and Cantil died. I'm going to go out there and do a little exploration of that as soon as it gets either a little warmer or a little cooler. Right now it's perfect snake weather, and I don't like having to worry about that. But Aqueduct City didn't have that kind of a contract in place or a promise or anything, and there was just no way they could get water here. And power was close, but it would have still had to have been run out of. Anybody who bought property out here and wanted to do anything with it at that time and to this day is going to have to figure out how to get their own power out here, and they're going to have to figure out how to get their own water. I don't know anything about where the water table is here. Like you saw earlier, Mojave is considerably below us in elevation, so the water table out here is probably deeper than it's worth drilling for. And the aqueduct is just right over there, man, maybe a quarter of a mile from here on the other side of the freeway, on the other side of the tracks. It's underground here. It's delineated by concrete buttress looking things that keep people from driving on it. But anyway, I've just always thought this was kind of a neat thing, and I never have stopped here before. I knew it was subdivided, but I never knew there were actually road signs here. And these road signs, as you saw, look like they're freshly painted and installed. So who knows? Maybe they're still trying to dump this property. And the way things are going with population expansion, you never know. Property taxes in Kern County are significantly cheaper than they are in any of the other surrounding counties. And who knows? Maybe that's what they're banking on. And another thing that, and I don't know that Aqueduct City was involved in this, but in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of support for legalizing gambling in California. And California City was actually developed with that in mind, as was, from what I understand, Stallion Springs by Tehachapi. Those were going to be big gambling places. And when that didn't happen, well, if you've never been to California City, maybe I'll do a little walk around to that place one of these days. I don't know much about what's in California City anymore. We used to race our bikes out there, but it never took off. It actually has a pretty good population now of, I think it's over 10,000 people now, but there's nothing out there, and there's never going to be anything out there. There's an airport where they do skydiving and stuff like that. But anyway, I don't know if Aqueduct City had that in mind when they thought that was going to take off, and maybe the DWP would be willing to contract some water out if they were paid well from that. I just don't know. It's all speculation, but it's interesting speculation. Anyway, I'll take a putt around Aqueduct City. Well, I drove exactly 1 mile east on Avenue 22, and this is the last graded road, so I'm assuming this is the end of the property that is owned by whoever subdivided this. I'm at the corner of Avenue 22 and Broadway. It's almost kind of sad that somebody went to all this time and effort, and I'm sure it wasn't inexpensive, hoping this would take off, and having it just not. So we'll cruise on out here and see how far to the north it goes. Right here we are at Broadway and Avenue 4. And this is the last road. It may have went on down to Avenue 1 at some point, but it certainly doesn't anymore, because that is Highway 58 right there. And we're about half a mile east of the 58 access to Mojave, 58 business. And then down there about, exactly a mile is the Highway 14 exit, because there's the sign right there that says Highway 14 1 mile. I'm sure this would have been the cheaper properties up here. They don't have the quite the view that they had down there at Main Street and Avenue 22. Some of the street names I saw were Spring Street, Hill Street, a couple others I don't remember. But anyhow, move on through Aqueduct City. Well, I turned down Avenue 5. And this is the only structure of any sort that I have found in Aqueduct City. I don't know what it is. So somebody's got some wood stacked up back there on a couple of benches and a fence with no fencing, a gate with no gate, and a no trespassing sign. How would they know? And why on earth would you want to trespass unless you wanted to go steal their structure? But anyhow, Avenue 5, property obviously owned by someone in Aqueduct City. Who knows? Maybe they'll be the land barons when this is all said and done. I've driven a little further west on Avenue 5 and came across this lot. It's marked. And there was obviously a trailer here at one point that was set up on these concrete blocks. But looks like it met its end with fire. Bunch of melted aluminum and glass and burned up wood, a couple of metal rails, that probably the chassis of the trailer. Looks like they had their own Joshua tree, but now that tree's off the property. It's outside of the markings. And that's funny, there are no Joshua trees in this lot, but there are a lot of them around it. Anyway, another lot that was once inhabited in Aqueduct City. And this is on Avenue 10, just off of Main Street. This place has got railroad ties for posts, and looks like somebody tried to plant some trees out here at one time. So maybe I made fun of people having dreamed of owning their own property. Maybe this was what some people saw as an inexpensive opportunity to do that. And I don't know if this property is still owned by anyone, but it is. They haven't been here in a while. Looks like they had probably a little garden or something right there, with a fence over it to keep the critters from stealing it. Those are pine trees right there, some sort of pine trees that they tried to get growing. They'd have needed them for windbreaks out here. Doesn't look like they had trees growing in there. I don't know, maybe trying to get shrubs going or something. But anyway, another broken dream in Aqueduct City. Well, I was walking around that property with the railroad ties around it, just kind of looking around, and I came across a couple of date nails. The one on the left is from 1937, the one on the right is from 1929. Date nails, for those of you who don't know, they put them in railroad ties to let the track people know how old the ties were. The old creosote treated ties were good for about 20 years, sometimes more, sometimes less, but that was about the average. And so the inspectors could go along and check those date nails out. They were about every 100 ties or so, they'd put one in. Tie projects were and still are done at their big volume jobs. They replace tens of thousands of ties at a time. They didn't put them in individual ties when they were just changing ties out. But anyway, that's what they were for, and they're collectible. I don't collect them, so I can run across somebody that wants them. But anyway, a couple of little treasures from Aqueduct City. Well, this lot here is near the corner of Main and 15th, and it's for sale. There's the information for anybody who wants a desert dream property. But this one, something that might sweeten the pot a little bit, has a built-in swimming pool. Look at that. And a tree to provide shade. Well, even though that's east and that's west, so that's on the north side of the pool. Know how much shade it would provide. Looks like it comes with a rake, so you can improve your property or your pool, whichever you decide to do. But I thought it was pretty interesting. It's all painted blue. Somebody went to a lot of trouble to do that. Might want to give them a call. Get this place before it's too late. Another treasure at Aqueduct City. Well, here we are at Hill Street and Avenue 20. Came across this lot. Looks like somebody actually started to build an abode of some kind. There's some corrugated tin and maybe a little cover there. I don't know. But it's like they went to some pretty decent lengths to get some things done here. You can see where the door was, and actually laid some brick and mortar in there. Tile, and they had a hot tub, or at least a tub. I don't know how hot it was. I don't know what they used to heat it with, but definitely went to some lengths to build that. Tile, concrete, bottom of it's tiled. Pretty fancy tile. Huh. The things you see in Aqueduct City. Well, we're back where we started at Aqueduct City at the corner of Main and Avenue 22. Aqueduct City turned out to be about 1 mile square, which is actually pretty significant. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you get a lot of houses on a square mile and some stores. That's pretty significant, huh? And as I said before, this was probably not an inexpensive venture for someone, but it was more interesting than I thought it would be. I actually didn't think there would be anything out there, but obviously at some point people thought it was worth the effort, and kind of sad that it didn't work out for them, but who knows what's in the future. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this little junket out in the desert just north of Mojave. Let me know what you think. We'll see y'all later.